Good morning. It's Thursday, May 4th, and Title 42 is set to expire in 1 week on May 11th. Now, you know what Title 42 is, probably. It's an immigration act or law or whatever they called it that President Trump activated to control the influx of immigrants from the South. Title 42 was created to address health and social welfare issues, and it granted the government the ability to take emergency action in several different ways, including to stop the introduction of communicable diseases. Now, while the code has been in place for decades, it really wasn't used until March 2020. And it was used then by President Trump because that was the beginning of the pandemic, and the pandemic was a perfect excuse to introduce the forcefulness of Title 42, which allowed the government to send somebody home without any lingering cases to hang around. They could deport the people immediately under Title 42 health and welfare. So now it's going to run out, supposedly, on May 11th. And Biden is supposedly going to announce a new restrictive policy that would essentially expand the immigration program that is known as Title 42. Even though he promised to end the program when he ran for office. But in the meanwhile, because of May 11th is on the horizon, and because our government expects a huge influx of immigrants after May 11th, because I am sure those people have been watching carefully the calendar to see when May 11th comes and when Title 42 supposedly is going to be ended, that they can get here and hang around and try to get into this country some way, shape, or form. Now, immigration, in my mind, is a terrible situation. I believe we need immigrants. We need new blood in this country. Our population growth is probably minimal compared to many countries. So we need workers. We need people who are willing to do certain kinds of jobs. And we need people who have to escape from the terrible situations that exist in other countries. Not that we don't have a terrible situation in this country right now, but in any event, we need immigrants. And so I don't know why so many people are against immigrants. These immigrants come here and they take jobs that Americans don't want to do anymore. And some of these immigrants have talents. They're educated. They have left their countries because their countries are unlivable. They're not safe. They're run by dictators. So there are a lot of reasons why we should be accepting these people. But we need to accept them in some orderly fashion, which we haven't figured out yet how to do. And it's not entirely our fault that we can't come to a proper conclusion on how to handle immigration, because it's something that we can't control. We have no control over the amount of people that want to come to this country. We can't issue an edict that says if you want to come to this country, fill out this form and we'll tell you what day to show up. We can't do anything like that. We don't have the ability to allow applications to come into this country that could be processed. And I am sure even if we had a system like that, we could probably not run it efficiently based upon the way I've seen our government do lots and lots of things. So meanwhile, because this thing, Title 42, is about to end, and in preparation for this expected surge of crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border next week, Joe plans to send an additional 1,500 active duty troops to the border. Now that's to free up the Department of Homeland Security agents. The troops will take on supposedly strictly administrative roles. That's what the officials are telling us. And they will join around 2,500 National Guard troops already in place. So we are spending huge amounts of money to take control of a situation that is almost uncontrollable. And this surge is because the immigrants have been paying attention and they know Title 42 is going to end. So Biden is beefing up the border. Let's call it that. He's beefing up the border to handle the influx. And sending thousands of troops there is an awful lot of expense for this country. So why? Why can't we solve this problem? And of course, not everybody is happy with Biden's action of sending troops to the border. Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey said sending troops to the border was unacceptable. The militarization of the border is unacceptable, he said. There's a humanitarian crisis in the Western Hemisphere, and deploying military personnel only signals that migrants are a threat that require our nation's troops to contain it. Where's he getting this crap from? They are a threat, but they're not a physical threat. They are a threat to our society in the sense that we have not figured out how to control the situation. These people are desperate people. The immigrants are desperate people. But does Menendez have a way of officially, easily getting them into the country? No. He's just shooting his mouth off. This is a terrible situation, and we don't need anybody creating the atmosphere that Biden is doing wrong. Menendez should be sitting down and keeping his mouth shut and coming up with a solution. What is his solution? Let them gather at the border and carry on? We have to control this atmosphere. We have to control this situation. And leaving it up to the politicians maybe is the worst case. Military people might be able to establish an order that exists. And yes, it might look like a concentration camp at some point, but that's a terrible thing to say and a terrible division in my mind. Let us understand that these are desperate people that are coming here. They have to be desperate to walk hundreds of miles. And they have to be poor. These are not wealthy people who can just sign up and get into this country. These are desperate people who are trying to save their lives. And whatever Biden is trying to do, he should be getting all the support that he can possibly get. But he's not going to get it because we have narrow-minded people in our government. We have people who are afraid of the immigrants. They're threatening the people who don't want to do the jobs that they're willing to do. So what are you supposed to do? This is another major conundrum on top of all our other major conundrums. And there's no real quick and easy solution to this thing. This is a matter that has to be worked out with all parties. So why don't we have a group of Republicans and Democrats working on this instead of fighting one another? I leave you with that this morning. Another example of our ineptitude. Bye.